I'm Mark.
I'm Eric.
And this is Forensics and Beer. So today we're talking hashes, and I'm already hungry. I really want a hash brown, but unfortunately we can't eat these ones.
Nope.
We're going to talk today about various hash algorithms such as MD5 and SHA. Regardless of the hashing algorithm, there's a few things to know about a hash. The idea is if you feed a hashing algorithm any kind of data, it spits out a number. If you feed that same data 1,000 times, it spits out the same number 1,000 times. But if you change that data at all, it spits out a different number. So I'm going to show this demonstration here of the MD5 hash. MD5 is a 128-bit hash, meaning the number it spits out is 128 bits. And this nice big file, Forensics and Beer, over and over and over again, as you can see, and I hash it with MD5, and here's the value that it hashes out. It's a 128-bit value. I'm going to change one little byte, as you see at the end of this file. Other than that, one little byte. These two files are the same. We're going to MD5 it again, and the result is not even close.
Very different.
That's the very point of hashes. The point of hashes is to show if two different sets of data, whether it's a file, an image, whatever it may be, if two different sets of data are the same or if they're different.
Hashes, one way to think about it is if you've ever seen the colored sand art, where you can layer different colors of sand.
Yeah.
So that is your hash. Changing one bit is the equivalent of just shaking that really hard.
Yeah.
You'll know that it's different.
And as we saw with this big file that I changed one bit on, that bit I changed was towards the very end of the file. If you were to manually look at these two files and go bit at a time to see if they're the same file or not, this is 100 megabytes. That's a whole lot of bytes to go through. It would take you a very long time to see if it's the same file. But you run hash, and in a few seconds, you can tell if these files are the same or not. That's why we hash. Hashes are what we call a one-way mathematical formula. That means we hash a file and we get an output. But Eric, if I give you an MD5 or a SHA-1 hash, will you ever be able to figure out what file made that hash?
Oh, not unless I knew the file in the first place.
If I show you this hash, can you figure out if it's a large file or a small file?
No.
Can you figure out if it's a picture or a piece of malware? You
Nope.
never ever will be able to. It's just a number that's spit out.
Yes.
So there's a few purposes of hashing in forensics. The first big one, in a previous episode, we created a physical image of a drive, and at the end, the process FTK Imager created hashes of both the image we created and the original hard drive, and we showed that the hashes are the same. That proves that the image you created is a bit-for-bit authentic representation of the original drive. That's one point of hashes in forensics, to prove authenticity of a created image. Another use of hashes in forensics is to show if two different files are the same.
If you have a hash of a file, it's very easy to compare it to a list of other hashes to say, hey, this is this file, without you ever having to actually do an examination of the file. This is useful for both known good files and known bad files. And there are reference libraries available from various organizations that will give you gigabytes upon gigabytes of these hash lists. NIST maintains one called the NSRL, which is the National Software Reference Library. And its purpose is to look for known software such as Windows, Photoshop, Adobe, just common files that people have, and they will go through and hash various versions of it to say these files are from this version. That way, when you do your examinations, you can exclude those files automatically from your your examination without having to look at them, knowing what they are.
It can save an examiner a whole lot of time knowing that you just do not care about thousands and thousands of files on a computer.
And it can also be a good alert if you're looking through like your Windows systems files and you don't see any because your known hashes have said these are all good, except for this one DLL that doesn't have the right hash anymore.
It'll stand out.
That's an extreme warning that something has happened.
On the flip side, we talk about bad files. We have sets of hashes for anything from child exploitation imagery to known malware. If the examiner knows that a bunch of files on this computer contain disturbing imagery, you don't even have to look at them and be exposed to disturbing imagery. Or if you know that these files are known malware, you don't have to examine them and reverse engineer them and figure out what these files do. You already know.
It's good for incident responders too. It just saves a lot of time if you already know the hash.
So we talked about some big hashing algorithms. Two of them we're going to discuss here are MD5 and SHA. MD5 produces a 128-bit hash. SHA has several variants, SHA-1, SHA-256, that produces a different sized hash. It's another very secure hashing algorithm. MD5 is a faster algorithm than, say, SHA-256. One of the criticisms of MD5 is actually feasible to create a collision. Now, what is a collision? A collision is just like an automotive collision. Two automobiles arriving at the same location at the same time is a collision.
When two files create the same hash at the same time, that's a collision.
Now, with MD5, it's very possible to make a collision. I have personally never encountered a collision in any examination.
I have never heard of a wild collision occurring.
No, but again, there is research to show that an advanced user could create a collision with MD5. But if you're examining a drive and you do not suspect that your user is any kind of highly advanced computer knowledge person, use MD5 by all means.
For forensics, MD5 is perfectly fine. The fact that there can be collisions doesn't change the fact that what you're doing is showing that files haven't changed, that they match no matter what you've done.
So, Eric, just curious, how many possible outcomes can there be in an MD5 algorithm?
Quite a few. An MD5 would be 2 to the 128, which is a very large number.
So the question I have for you is, what is a larger number? The possible MD5 outcomes or number of hairs I've lost on my head since becoming a dad?
I don't know. That's going to be a really close race.
So some people in the forensics community will advise you against using MD5. I'm not going to judge you if you use a, quote, insecure hashing algorithm. I am going to judge you if you drink a cheap beer. And on that question, Eric, what are you drinking today?
I am drinking Flying Dog's Bloodline. First time I've had their Blood Orange Ale.
How do you like it?
I like it. It's a good beer.
Good. I've got myself a Vienna Lager by Devil's Backbone. This is brewed in Lexington, Virginia. I've had many Devil's Backbones in my life.
A very
It's a
solid
local
beer.
craft brew. I mean, you're talking about a good old-fashioned lager. You have a hard time finding a better one than this.
You can't go wrong there.
Enjoy hashing, enjoy beer.
Exactly.
If you enjoyed this video or learned something, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel to be notified of future content. If you have any questions, sarcastic remarks, or beer recommendations, please leave a comment. The next video will be released whenever these beer-drinking fools decide to do something worthwhile with their time.